YouTube, what the crap's going on? Welcome to Stir River, where I'm going to have a Heralds of Ariel versus Lizardmen game here. And boy, this one is a great battle, so make sure you stay tuned for the entire thing. Let's take a look at the armies involved. The Heralds of Ariel are going to have a Glade Lord on the just Elven Steed here. So it's going to provide Prey of Anathrema and Arrows of Kurnos, some nice range for him. Infantry-wise, they're going to have Eternal Guards with shields up front, and then behind that they're going to have a mixture, and there is a lot of them, of Glade Guard with Hagbane tips and a Glade Guard with Starfire shafts. Now, Hagbane tips provide a poison damage that slows and lowers weapon damage and other statistics, and then you're going to have Starfire shafts, which are a flaming and armor-piercing ammunition, providing different types of damage for the Wood Elves. There's a couple of Wildwood Rangers, one on either flank. And we have another Eternal Guard with shields. In the back, there's a Spellsinger, Lure of Shadows, and they are rocking the Penumbral Pendulum, an enfeebling foe, helps support the Glade Lord. If we take a look over on the flanks, we do have some Wild Riders and Wild Hunters of Kurnos. There's going to be two Skink Chiefs for the Lizardmen. Up in the air over here are two Fire Leech Bolas, Pterodon Riders, and then the Lord is a red-crested Skink Chief. Also, on a Pterodon, we have three Saurus Warriors with Saurus Spears with shields. Two Skink cohorts, one of which is a Javelin cohort operating on the right flank, and then we've got the Umbral Tide Salamander Hunting Pack, and a Distillodon with Solar Engine, as well as an Ancient Salamander. I love me some Ancient Salamander action. Ancient Salamanders are extremely good against densely packed units, whether it's archers or infantry, but they suffer from extremely low range, basically putting them in the range of near all missile units in the game. Which makes them very difficult to use. CA, please. I mean, I don't see what a little bit longer range on Ancient Salamander is going to hurt, but maybe it will. I don't know. We're going to see an attempt at a pendulum here, and actually a fairly decent dodge by the Lizardmen on a spell that comes pretty quick. So, not a bad dodge. We're going to get a Prey of Anathrema on the Skink Chief, which is going to trap him on the ground here, leave him vulnerable to quite a bit of missile fire, which is now being ordered incoming. So that Skink Chief is likely to have some damage stacked up against it. But here comes the Fire Leech Bolas looking to bail their lord out. They're going to come in, unleashing their Bolas. The Bolas are really good against, I would say, low armor would be where they're going to do best. I don't find them to be particularly devastating kind of alone, but in numbers they can be pretty darn good. The Skink Chiefs are down here attacking some archers, but they do have to contend with Wildwood Rangers as the pretty tough customers in terms of something they don't want to get involved. I say that it's kind of like a glass cannon. Still not something that Skink Chief really wants to get involved with. Got the Fire Leech Bolas parked overhead. The Umbral Tide is just raining in fire from his position behind the lines. He got some really solid hits on the Wood Elves here. But the Skink, red-crested Skink Chief took an absolute shellacking at the hands of the Heralds of Ariel and continues to get beat down, despite having the potion active there, which massively increased the weapon damage. However, revenge may be swift for the Skink as it charges in on the Glade Lord, and you get some Skink cohort with javelins to help pin them in. And very quickly, the Glade Lord remembers why she's not really interested in melee fights, and the red-crested Skink Chief is going to put her to rout rather quickly. Eternal Guards show up, but it is too late, and so we have a very tight battle indeed. The Lizardmen appear to be mopping up most of the infantry fight, but the ranged element for the Wood Elves is not dead and is still fairly well protected by Wild Riders. So it's going to be difficult for the Lizardmen to get rid of it. And the longer it is alive, the more damage it causes. And I think we all know how this one goes. You know how you don't want missile units alive till the end of the game because they are devastating, almost irregardless of what total war game you are playing in. The Umbral Tide is having to reverse itself from a fight with some Wildwood Rangers. Some Saurus Warriors going to come in its place. Umbral Tide definitely should stay out of melee. It's still got some ammo left. A decent melee combatant, albeit Salamanders are pretty squishy in a melee, but they have decent stats when they do get in there. A Saurus Spear here catching up with these archers. This is very bad news for the Heralds of Ariel, who are now going to be attacked by Pterodon Riders in melee and the Saurus Spears with shields. So that is likely to be the end of these Glade Guard with Starfire shafts. Again, very close match. The Wild Riders did manage to get into the Salamanders back here, and remember I mentioned that they are squishy, and you will see that here. is definitely the downside of salamanders. They really can't stand up too well in many melee fights. And so Wild Riders, definitely some of the better light cavalry in the game in terms of speed and damage, charge output. They are themselves kind of a glass cannon, a bit squishy, but they certainly can do a lot of damage in the right scenario. And speaking of a lot of damage in the right scenario, the Ancient Salamander get an opportunity to land some hits here without having to be threatened by the ranged element. So he's coughing up fiery hairballs. Of course, I guess scale balls in his case, because he doesn't have hair. But that's always what it kind of reminds me of. But still a fun unit. Got 126 kills and picked up an experience chevron, so quite a fun unit. However, the Wild Hunters and Wild Riders definitely clearly have a taste for some dino flesh here. They do bypass the Ancient Salamander and look to converge on the Bastiladon with Solar Engine, which is also low on ammunition. And the Salamander takes a fantastic shot into that, picking up even more kills and experience, and the Wild Riders are swiftly put to rout. However, the Wood Elves are getting a lot of units kind of coming back from routing in the background. The red-crested skink chief died in the meantime while we were casting this, or routed, one of the two. So the Lizards find themselves without a leader, but still there is a very close fight to be had here. So the fight's going to get underway. The Lizardmen trying to pick off some, I think, vulnerable units here for the Heralds of Ariel. Let me get the Arrows of Kurnos here into the Bastiladon with Solar Engine, which is an excellent hit by the Glade Lord. Glade Lord, though, is susceptible to the Solar Engine. The Solar Engine's susceptible to the Glade Lord. The Glade Lord does manage to come out on top, I guess, if that's what you want to call it here. Barely alive, but did manage to rout the Solar Engine, though it has not shattered. These regrouping archer units that all are coming back in with ammunition are now going to be a major threat for the Lizardmen. And, I mean, at this point, it doesn't look good for the Lizardmen. You consider how many ranged units you have left. However, the Salamander's still alive, still landing good shots. He's got one more volley maybe of ammunition. However, the archers are going to start targeting it, and that is going to hurt. And it goes ahead and rampages at this point, which is very bad for the Lizards. That rampage ability, a curse for Lizardmen players universally. It is really kind of a bad mechanic, in my opinion. I don't like it. But the Lizards look like they are out of the fight at this point. There's just very little left. They've got Bastiladon with Solar Engine, Sara Spears, and then some Fire Leech Bolas back here. And like I said, it is not looking good in terms of the power bar and the balance for the Lizards. However, the Glade Lord routed and then was shot by a regrouped Solar Engine, so that is now going to have the Lord killed leadership effect, which immediately shatters some Eternal Guards and puts several more units to rout because their leadership was already low. So the Lizards pulling off a clutch shot there on an already routing Glade Lord that some may have just ignored, but the implications were huge on leadership. And so all of a sudden the Lizardmen are going to have an opportunity here. They clean up the Wildwood Rangers, and this leaves almost every unit on the battlefield for the Heralds of Ariel routing. And honestly, the archers are almost out of ammunition at this point too. There's very little left, but I mean, all it takes is a little bit of ammunition at this point. Everything is under, like, like I say, almost under 500 hit points, almost, because the Sara Spears, not so quite. The Bastiladon's going to take some shots. It is relatively well armored, but I mean, poison and armor piercing working together, definitely not Lizardmen need. So once again, where it looked like the Lizardmen might be able to come back, it's now looking pretty decent for the Elves again, except for the fact that ammo just ran out for the archers, and the Bastiladon is not shattered. It is merely routing, and then you have a Pterodon Rider that is merely routing, and some Skinks that were near the edge of the map that have now come back, and all of a sudden, again, the Heralds of Ariel find themselves on the defensive. This battle is like just flopping back and forth faster than a politician lying about stealing candy from a baby. So we're going to end up with a really interesting final battle here. As the Lizardmen, again, we're starting to lose the power bar. The quick charge from the Skink cohort, though, manages to stave off the power bar and actually starting to push it back towards the middle. But, I mean, an incredibly close fight. Here comes some regrouped Fire Leech Bolas. The Bastiladon still has not turned around. Sara Spears shattered, and I mean, we're just in a crazy fight here. A Skink cohort with Javelins being the last hope of the Lizardmen, at least for the moment, until these Fire Leech Bolas might arrive, and they managed to win and rout the Heralds of Ariel. A few of their units had come back from routing near the edge of the map, some of them even having ammunition, but they are far spread, and the power bar continues to slump, despite this being extraordinarily close. I mean, this battle is insanely close. Look at this, 72, 71, and to 33 here in terms of troop counts left. So both sides taking egregious losses. And, I mean, there is... it is very, very close. But look at this. Some of the Heralds of Aerial troops back here. One of them routed and then immediately came back. Again, it's only 10 units, but they do have a bit of ammo. This one routed. Actually, their ammo... Yeah, they still have just a hair of ammo there. But look at the power bar. It's finally going against the Heralds of Aerial. This was an insane battle. Like, the back and forth here was crazy. I thought the Heralds of Aerial had this. And then there was points at which I thought the Lizardmen had this thing for sure. And it just kept swinging back and forth and back and forth. And then all comes down to like a skink cohort making a clutch last-second charge to save the day. I mean, holy cow. I've had some really good battles submitted to me recently, and this certainly ranks among them in terms of keeping it very interesting all the way to the end. Cecilius here? Cecilius? And TDQ. Fantastic battle. Let's take a look at some of the stats. Pretty good performance out of the Glade. I mean, it really wasn't bad. Didn't get much out of the Spell Singer, unfortunately, for the Wood Elves. Take a look at the other units across here. I mean, pretty decent value out of the Archers. That's typical for the Wood Elves. That's some of their better units. Pretty good here on this Wild Rider. I think more than what they cost. And a little less than probably what they cost here for the Wild Hunters of Kurnos. We take a look at the Lizardman side. Decent performance out of the Skink. Probably not enough to cover costs, and same with the Skink Chiefs. But if we go over here, I mean, that's pretty decent out of the Ancient Salamander. Pretty solid performance out of the Solar Engine. The Pterodon Riders, one of them did pretty great. And then we had the Umbral Tide over here that really did rack up a lot of damage and some pretty good value. And then, of course, the Saurus Warriors with shields were enough to give, I think, give the Elves a run for their money the entire time. So a very close battle. Very fun fight. Appreciate both players for taking part in this one, and I do hope you all enjoyed it. I know I did. And I have more, folks. Got more fun battles for you that I am looking through, both ones that were submitted to me and ones that I have played on stream. So keep coming back. We will have more battles for you. Of course, the Atomo campaign is going to be continuing on Shogun 2. I have some other upcoming projects to keep an eye out for. I think Mrs. Air and I are going to do a campaign. Just got to give us time. We got a lot going on. We're trying to get prepared for it. Obviously, there's a new DLC coming up. As soon as I can give you any coverage of that, I absolutely will. Because, of course, we're going to cover it, and we'll play the campaigns in it. To be fair, though, as is typically the case, when CA releases something, I either have a work trip or some kind of family vacation. And sure enough, right around the time that CA is releasing the Silence and the Fury, I'm going to be on vacation for 2 weeks. So CA, please. However, depending on when they might get us early access, I may still have an opportunity to record a bunch on it prior to leaving on vacation. If not, I'm pretty much going to miss any bump in interest or views from this DLC because I'm going to be on vacation and unable to record when it counts most. So I don't know. We will see. I'm hoping for the best. They are pretty good about getting us early access these days, and I'm hopeful. If they do, be assured I will be doubling down hard on it and getting you a couple of weeks worth of content recorded ahead of time so that it'll be out there fresh and hot when you are interested in it. Anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now, and I will see you soon with some more content in Total War Warhammer 2.